you don't want to cheap out, and you want to be hypercritical. You want to get an artist who's going to make you look good, right? You can put on a tuxedo, but if you're just driving around town in a rusted out 1981 Chevette, you're not going to look fancy.
Hey guys, welcome to Inside Comics with George McHale. Really quick, if you like this content, please subscribe and tell a friend about it. My guest today is the incredible Ed Brisson. Dude, thanks so much for being on the show.
Oh, thanks a lot for having me.
You've been just killing it on Marvel books, X-Men, Wolverine, Ghost Rider. But before that, you were making crime books.
Yeah, before that, I actually had like a long sort of history of self-publishing comics and such. But sort of what put me on a lot of people's radars, I guess, was a crime series I was doing called Murder Book, which is a bunch of short crime stories that were all set around where I was living at the time, which is Vancouver. Though one of them is actually set in Kelowna. Yeah, it's just a genre I love. I grew up around it. For sure, both my parents worked in and around it, so there was a lot of dinner table talk. I did have a streak of being a bit of a juvenile delinquent when I was younger, and did get into all sorts of trouble. I mellowed out when I became a teenager, and have sort of kept my nose clean since. But yeah, just in general, I'm a huge fan of crime as a genre.
It did take some time to break in at Marvel. I read that you started working on comics in 1994. I'm wondering if you have any advice for new writers trying to break into the industry.
Yeah, sure. It's tough. So as a writer, it's much harder to break in as a writer than it is as an artist, because an artist can put a portfolio up online. Someone can go to their website, and in 2 seconds know if there's talent, if there's not talent. Obviously with the writer, it's more of an investment to gauge the skill of someone. You have to read, enough by them to get a sense of it. The thing that I egotistically call the murder book method is how I sort of started out doing murder book, which is, I think a lot of writers could benefit from this, is taking time to do short stories, ideally 5-page stories, with a beginning, middle, and end, not like a 5-page to be continued at the end. Just focus on doing really short, tight 5-page stories, and give yourself a really hard deadline on that. When I was doing my 5-page stories, I would sit down and give myself 2 weeks to write a 5-page story, and then next week to revise it to get as tight as possible, which is plenty of time. When I'm working big 2 books, sometimes I have to do 5 pages a day. So 5 pages over 2 weeks is nothing. The benefit of doing the short stories is, once you go out and have to find an artist, which is can be incredibly difficult. It's a lot cheaper to hire an artist to come on for a 5-page story, easier to find an artist to come on for a 5-page story than it is if you have your 200-issue epic series that you want to do, which for some reason so many writers starting out have this grand, story they want to tell is going to have a run longer than Cerebus, and it's just not feasible. It's not possible. It's not going to happen. So yeah, focus on 5 pages. Try and save some money to hire an artist. If you're lucky, you have a friend who's an artist who you can kind of turn to draw it. But this is teaming up with an artist is the one place where you do not, you don't want to cheap out, and you want to be hypercritical. You want to get an artist who's going to make you look good, right? You can put on a tuxedo, but if you're just driving around town in a rusted out 1981 Chevette, you're not going to look fancy. You need the combo. Comics are art and writing together. So I would hire an artist to do 5-page story, and then just put the 5-page story up online for people to read for free. When I was doing it, I kept the stories in black and white. Thankfully, black and white fits with crime. Um, I think it fits really well with horror. Some genres maybe doesn't as much, but by keeping it black and white, I was able to save on hiring colorists. I would also advise, if you don't know how to letter, to hire a letterer. Not expensive. Bad lettering, I think that a lot of people don't recognize bad lettering, but when they're putting together a project, for some reason it's a blind spot. But readers will definitely recognize it, even if they can't put their finger on it. So hire a professional letterer to do it. And then, like I said, just put it up on online for free. A lot of people get really hung up on trying to make back their investment on their first stories. And it's a really difficult thing to happen. And if you're going to make any money off of it, it's going to be pizza money. It's not going to be real money. So yeah, just put them up online for free, because what you're trying to do is build up a portfolio. And now you have these 5-page stories, which are very quick for editors to read. If your goal is to break into the industry, they're very quick for editors to read, and they can generally gauge across 5 pages if you have any skills as a writer or not. And it also gives you an opportunity to start building relationships with artists. You can put your stuff out there and start getting feedback from other writers on your writing. And then, next time you go out, hopefully you make it tighter and better. And yeah, just keep doing these 5-page stories. And then I would say not to go about 10 pages for a while. Like, spend a year or so doing 5 and 10-page stories. Treat it like you're going to school, and just try and learn how to structure a story. And the thing I like about doing short stories as well is that it forces you to sort of be frugal. I think some writers, when they get hung up, or when they're stuck on something, they tend to overwrite to try and get their way out of the situation. And you can't do that. There's not space to do that in a short story. So it makes you focus. It makes you really pay attention to what you're doing, and make sure that you're sort of cutting back the unnecessary fat from your story, and just getting a nice lean project.
So before I used to live in Kelowna, here where I am, and you had a writers group. Shout out to Peter Harding, a friend of mine that was also in your writers group. And I was hoping that you could speak to the importance of having a writing group.
But it was a group of us who just used to meet every Sunday. And people, if they had scripts, so we would just bring them in, and we would email them out, during the week. And then on Sundays we'd all meet, and we could sort of discuss and dissect everyone's scripts, which is tough. It's tough to sit there and listen to someone tearing apart your script. I think the good thing about it is there were a lot of different voices there. So a lot of the advice, and this is a tricky thing about advice, if you get good advice from about 10 different people, it's going to be it's all going to seem like 10 different bits of advice, but there will be commonalities that'll pop up across those 10 people. And that's when you start realizing, okay, there's this issue that needs to be fixed. There's a problem. So yeah, I think it's great because it's a great way to get out and meet people in your community locally. And then it's just a great opportunity to hone your writing skills, knowing that someone is actually going to be looking at the stuff that you're writing. I think a lot of aspiring writers sort of write in silence and write they don't show their stuff off to anyone. They're just there writing, hoping it's good. But it's a really good way of sort of sharpening your tools and sort of learning where maybe your problem areas are and what you excel at as well, and just building good projects. That group is great. I unfortunately don't have anything like that out here in Halifax. I do miss meeting with those folks every Sunday.
Yeah, I know what you mean about kind of having it just in your head and not really sharing it with anybody. One thing I would do is I would act out my scripts to my wife, and actually saying the words out loud really kind of make you aware of okay, that doesn't sound right. I gotta fix this up and make changes. My wife is very patient with me.
I think all comic partners and spouses deserve their own holiday, I think, for the crap they have to put up from us.
Hey, so you have a super cool new Kickstarter out. It's called Catch and Release, a murder book story. And I'm wondering, can you tell us about it?
Yeah, so like really the inciting incident here is it's about the story's about a guy named, well, it's about four people. Well, one of our main characters is a man named Andrew. It's, you know, we acknowledge, we don't dwell on the pandemic, but acknowledge that it's something happening in the background. He's out of work right now. He's behind on rent. He's behind on child support. He's facing eviction. He's gonna, like, his power is gonna get. He's broke, and he steals a car. But in his mind, his rationale is he used to, like, this is something he used to do when he was younger, is steal cars. He's got a bit of a shady past, and he kind of just steals a car to see if he can still do it, right? Just to see if he's still got it. And the irony of, like, me coming back and writing a crime story to see if I can still do it, and this guy stealing a car to see if he can still do it, it's not lost on me. Anyway, he's got this car in his garage, and he just, like, he doesn't know what to do with it because he stole the car. He can't sell it because the story's set here in Nova Scotia, and you need there's so much paperwork that in BC you don't need out here that you actually need to sell a car. So him and his friend Chris, who's sort of this, like, cold and calculating, he's kind of a dickhead, and he decides, the two of them decide that the way to deal with their money is to take this car and list it for sale. But in the listing, they very specifically mention cash only, right? It's a cash only purchase. And their plan is to lure potential buyers to a remote location and rob them at gunpoint, basically, hoping that people will come up with $5,000 to buy this car, you know, and they rob them. And their hope is that they can repeat this 2 or 3 times, take care of all their money problems that they're having, maybe have some more money in their pocket. On the other side of the story, we've got Samar and Alex, who Samar, who we call Sam in the story, is he's a student who is moving from Halifax to Vancouver, and his car dies. His car's like, it's just a piece of crap, and it finally just kind of gives out. He needs a new car to drive out west. And so on the day before he's supposed to move, he finally finds something that's in his price range and it looks solid. And so he goes out, you know, him and Alex go out to meet Andrew and Chris to buy this car. And, you know, Andrew and Chris try and enact their plan. Things go horribly wrong. And a large part of the story is them dealing with the fallout of this just sort of botched robbery attempt. That I tried something which I'm very big on telling people to outline their stories and really know what it's going to be before they go in, and especially know your ending. This one was a weird one. I'm a big fan of Elmore Leonard, and he used to talk about writing and how he would have, like, sort of an inciting incident in his characters, and then he would just start writing and let the character sort of drag him through the story. And there was part of me that always thought that, as much as I love Elmore Leonard, it felt like a bit of bullshit to me sometimes. But I'm like, okay, I'm going to give this a whirl, right? And so I had a very rough idea of the story. I knew who the characters were quite well, like what was going on. And I just sat down and started writing, and I took several weeks to write the first draft of it. And I think partially that's because I was going without an outline, so it was a lot of exploring while I was writing. And yeah, I wrote the first draft over a few weeks, and then I went back, and I think I've done like 7 or 8 drafts of this now, like, which is like really just honing and tightening, and really I've got the time, so I'm going to take the time to really just pour everything I have into this. So at the end of the day, I had Murder Book Catch and Release, which is the book will be a 72-page book, so it's longer than any other murder book by about 50 pages.
So with your Kickstarter that's live now, you have lots of different reward tiers. Can you talk about what you're offering?
First and foremost, we do have the book, And so there is a digital edition of the book for those who are not into having physical items in their home. We do have the hardcover. So the book is coming as a hardcover, standard hardcover edition. We've got a hardcover that comes with a signed bookplate that Lysandra and I both sign. Goes in front of your book. We've got a similar one where instead of just having it signed, Lysandra will do it'll be a sketch bookplate. So he will sketch on it. We both sign it. We've got a retail tier, so stores who want to participate, we've built something in there for them where not only do they get the book, but I'll record a 30 to 60 second sort of like commercial for their store, within my own within the means that I have at my disposal. We've got original art. We've got some script reviews from pro writers. There's still one left from that I'll do a script review for you. So if you're an aspiring writer, do up to like a 30-page script. That's 30 comic pages, so your script could be like 50 pages, as long as it's 30 comic pages. Kelly Thompson will do one for you. And that's it. That's all we've got for right now.
Awesome. Well, Ed, I want to thank you so much for being on Inside Comics. I hope people will go out and search Catch and Release, a murder book story on Kickstarter now. And I'll catch you next time.
Peace. All right. Thanks a lot.